Dear Patriots, today we have a serious issue, a life-threatening issue. We have traitors in our midst. The Conservative Party faces a complete mutiny. Is this the end of Pierre Poilievre? Let's take a look at that.
Interestingly, D'Entremont also suggested that there could be more floor crossers following suit. And you got to remember, Pierre Poilievre is facing a leadership review in January. So much for the front bench to talk about tonight.
So needless to say, this is not good. And the video gets worse as it goes along.
Sharon Carr is a CTV News political analyst. She's former Deputy Chief of Staff to former Finance Minister Bill Morneau. Laura D'Angelo is with Enterprise Canada and previously worked in Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's office. Jamie Ellerton is the principal at Canaptus and worked for Minister Jason Kenney during the Harper government. And rounding us out this evening, Sebastian Skamsky was former Director of Media Relations to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Hello, everyone. Happy Floor Crosser Wednesday. Laura, I'll start with you. In your view, how big of a deal is this one?
I think this is a pretty big deal for Pierre Poilievre, who's facing the leadership review in January, right? I think this is a pretty direct reflection of his leadership style, as Chris D'Entremont has said himself, that he didn't like that leadership style. I think this coming on the heels of Pierre Poilievre's comments about the RCMP, which put a lot of people off, and as you and I talked about on radio earlier today, doesn't really help the party get to where they want to go. I think that this is a big deal for him. It's going to be a much bigger deal if more members cross the floor and if the news cycle continues to be what it was today, which is names flying around that sound pretty credible to be considering leaving his party.
Two of those names, Sebastian, I'll throw over to you. My instinct is that your feelings on this are quite precise. Two of those names, Matt Genereux from Edmonton and Dominic, why is the last name escaping me at the moment, but she's a Quebec MP. She put out a video. Matt Genereux put out a statement. It's not me. It's not me. Dominic Vien. Sebastian, what is going on here and how big of a deal is it from where you sit?
I think it's important to remind your viewers that Mr. D'Entremont made this decision driven by his professional self-interest. It's expected, seemingly, from politicians that they will put themselves first, but it is unfortunate when it happens in such a blatant way. Mr. D'Entremont, in speaking with Politico, who broke this story, was clear that this was simply about the fact that he was unable to become elected deputy speaker, and he even mused about his desire to have a better likelihood in the upcoming election. So I think it's important to put in that context and understand that unfortunately, this is something that a conclusion he came to just a month and a half ago, having attacked the Liberal government and Prime Minister Carney, ironically enough, about the size of his deficit spending and the negative impact it has on the constituents in his riding. So it's a betrayal, really, of the Canadians and the constituents who voted and elected him to stand up to the government to fight for lower prices on food, lower prices of homes, and affordability in general.
Now, that's a nice way of saying that Chris D'Entremont, the Conservative MP that crossed the aisle, is a traitor, just like Doug Ford. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Conservatives were so close. They were so close to victory. And then this snake came along and stabbed them all in the back. Before we go any further, I want to remind you all I'm being censored. So if you see this part of the video, let me know in the comment section. Give me a quick like and subscribe. Thanks.
On principle, I 100% understand that viewpoint, Sharon. Politically, what do you think it says?
I think it says everything about Pierre Poilievre, and it says nothing about loyalty to a party. Listen, this is not the first time we've talked about it. This is not the first time I've heard about it. And it's also not the first time it's happened before. We see floor crossings happen. It's not something that happens too frequently, but it does happen. And I do think that this is purely an indication of how people within the party feel about Pierre Poilievre. Now, he's an excellent communicator, but he's polarizing. Like Laura said, his comments about the RCMP really struck a chord with a lot of people within the party. And, you know, there's been names that have been floating around for weeks now. We talked a bit about this a few weeks ago when there were speculations originally about a floor crossing. And I think, again, this has a lot to do with how people are feeling, who their representative is, who their leader is. And all politics, to a certain extent, is a local. So, of course, you're going to get people in ridings who will have mixed opinions about whether or not someone they voted from a specific party crosses the floor. But also, a lot of people just want a good elected official who has principles and values. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Listen, we're probably going to hear more names popping around. I'm not surprised by the names we've seen. People like Matt Genereux are actually very reasonable, centrist type of conservatives. There's a lot of conservatives that I talk to, and he's someone that I actually find to be very reasonable, very thoughtful, and actually just generally a good person and a good representative. So I'm hearing a lot of talk in Ottawa that there is going to be more crossings that are coming. I know we saw this statement that came out earlier today from his office, but what I would say is that I think that we're going to see more coming up in the next couple days, couple weeks, and a lot of it is even kind of clear if you look at what's happening internally in the Conservative Party. Word on the street is there was a lot of hustle and bustle around what was happening in the opposition leader's office last night around strategy. So to be determined.
Now, clearly, this is bad news. All the Liberal Party needs is 2 more people to cross the aisle, and then we're going to be stuck with a Liberal majority for the next 3 years. Needless to say, I'm very disappointed in this MP, and to anyone else that dares consider crossing the aisle. These people are traitors, not only to their constituents, but to the people of Canada. And I'll have more to say on that later in the video.
So let's talk about that a little bit. How significant do you think it is for the party if it stays at this one individual, Jamie, versus if there are others? And what do you imagine is happening behind the scenes to ensure that it does just stay with Chris d'Entremont?
Yeah, undeniably, Vashti, this is obviously incredibly disruptive. There's a lot of people who feel a really personal sense of betrayal. But I think the more you hear Conservatives kind of railing against him now in the coming weeks, all it's going to do is feed oxygen into the story and remind Canadians that a Conservative MP crossed the floor and joined the Liberals. And I don't think that's helpful to the Conservative cause right now. I think if you're Pierre Poilievre meeting with your senior strategy group, I think you need to, one, obviously go back and do your homework and look at every member of caucus, reach out to them, have those points of contact, who's in their good books, who are they more likely to take overtures from, and make sure that this isn't actually going to become a trend, because then it truly becomes an existential problem, I think, for Pierre's leadership. If it's one, I really don't think it's going to have that big of an impact. But the other piece, instead of talking about the deficit today, instead of debating the future of the country and the country's finances, we're talking about a floor crosser. And so Pierre Poilievre is going to have to somehow find a channel changer to really turn the page on this quickly and get back to holding the government to account so that he can be back on his front foot rather than back on his heels.
Like I said earlier, this MP, he's a real snake. Canadians, Conservatives were so close to turning things around. But this fool, this jerk, this Judas figure had to make everything about himself. And why did he do it? I have some theories that the mainstream media won't tell you. So stick around to the end of the video.
Do you think that's true, Laura?
If Pierre Poilievre wants to change the story and not have it be about his leadership and the flaws there, I think he does have to change the channel, because right now it's been a pretty great news, almost 48 hours now for the Liberals, and hopefully that continues.
You look glowing. I am
will
glowing.
have to
This
say,
is as opposed to other weeks. Yeah.
It's been 25 hours. It was 4 p.m. when it broke yesterday. It is now 5:30.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Fair enough.
Good correction. Good correction. Sebastian, the last word goes to you, because you had talked in principle, and I like I said, I totally understand that view. I think some of his constituents, if not many, will share it. But from a political perspective, you had a front row seat to how parties maneuver around various crises, around issues. What will you be watching for in the next little while to see how this one is navigated?
Well, I think we saw an incredible rallying of support around Mr. Poilievre from caucus members today. People like Michael Chong, Michael Barrett, and really everyone in between on the spectrum. So again, I think this is really, and unfortunately, an isolated incident with Mr. d'Entremont, who will have a lot of time to think this through and understand that this kind of betrayal of his constituents, of the values that he held for so many decades, and especially ran under 7 months ago, is really unacceptable. And I think the people of his riding in the next election will have a say in that.
Words can't describe how disappointed I am. What a snake this guy is. Now, of course, we can only speculate as to what Chris d'Entremont's motivations were. Maybe he was bribed. Maybe it was blackmail. Maybe he did this to save himself and his political career. Maybe it was all three. I have some theories, and let me tell you. Let's face it, politics is a really dirty business, and I wouldn't put anything past the crooked Liberal Party. It's entirely possible that d'Entremont got an envelope in the mail with a bunch of pictures and a bunch of links. And this envelope read, "You do what we tell you to do, or else these pictures and videos, they go public. Your wife is going to leave you. Your kids are going to hate you and be ashamed of you. and you're never going to have any friends for the rest of your life. So you better think about this really carefully. You either come with us or you lose everything. Now, of course, there's no evidence to back that up, and we'll never know what happened behind closed doors. We'll never know what d'Entremont's true motivations were. However, like I said, politics is a dirty business, and I wouldn't put anything past Mark Carney and co. What's more likely is that d'Entremont was crushing the numbers, and he realized that if there was a new election, he might not win. And he did this to save his own skin, sort of like they indicated in the video. However, you'll never really know what happens behind closed doors, and how much money he may or may not have gotten, or what kind of threats were levied against him. Hell has a special place for traitors, and hell has lots of room for people like Doug Ford and Chris d'Entremont. God knows what both of these men have done and will judge them accordingly. However, I still remain optimistic, and let me tell you why. Yes, we had one MP cross the floor, one traitor. However, he's receiving a lot of backlash for this, and it's going to discourage other MPs from doing the same. Chris d'Entremont was so scared and so hurt by the backlash, he actually locked his X account. So I think other MPs are going to think twice about doing the same thing. I still maintain at least some hope that the budget will be defeated and we'll have a Christmas election. Then, if there's a Christmas election, we'll get a Poilievre supermajority. I'm not 100% confident that's going to happen, but I do have faith that sooner rather than later, we're going to get Poilievre into office. We just have to hang in there. Have a bit of faith, have a bit of patience. Good things are going to happen. We're going to win, and we're going to win big. Talk to you tomorrow, Patriots.